Chapter 18 from the book Beyond Mortal Boundaries, The Pathway of the Gods. The tree of knowledge of good and evil, and the command of Prime Creator goes out, let there be light. As Prime Creator directs Prime Creator's thought, the light goes out in a living flame of everlasting power, as the thunders of creation roll forth to follow that pattern and to fulfill the almighty decree of Prime Creator's command. And a new world takes form from the essence of Prime Creator's thoughts, as that vision is manifest, first as a tangible reality within the mind of Prime Creator. This is spiritual creation. This thought, this inner vision, is the pattern that the elements are drawn into the power of its forming and its begetting. For all things were first a thought, a vision, a breath of life divine, breathed into the birthing of each sacred need to give it body and to make it live. This is creation as it follows the pattern that the light of thought designs or draws for is fulfillment. And all that the divine mother of all creation and the divine Father has is yours. To man, Prime Creator gave the priceless gift divine, the mind. To each man was given a mind to think, to dream, to fashion, and to form the vision his heart holds forth. For man too is a creator, a God in the making. And for man's use, God set the universe and all that it contains. The creative force of light is ever man's to utilize, even as it is Prime Creator's. It is man's to command and to form into atoms as it is drawn into the pattern of his dreamings. For out of these infinitesimal rays of living cosmic light that fill the universe are atoms formed. And the atoms are the foundations and the substance and the essence of all tangible, solid material things. And each atom holds a living spark of Prime Creator held lovingly enfolded within its embrace. Within each atom is contained the love, the intelligence, and the power of Prime Creator. Atoms are the building blocks of all that is visible. Atoms, created from the rays of living light, are gathered into form by thought, until reality becomes apparent to the most ordinary and dense of men, as their lowered vision beholds only the dust. And so to each man, Prime Creator gave a mind with which to think and to dream, to form the patterns of his inner musings by the living force and energy of his own. And those thoughts will take form to flourish or to die according to the attention that one's garden of desire is nourished and sustained. Such is the power of that divine tree of good or evil that each man holds within the center of his and her being is his own Eden, his soul. each man, by the selection of his thoughts, can bring forth an abundance of all that his thoughts embrace. This is the tree of creation, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. This is the tree that man is a branch, and each man produces and brings forth either the good or the evil of his own thinking. And some produce a contaminated mixture of both love and the hates of their own creating. And each man will be judged by his idle thoughts. This is truth indeed. A man is what he thinks, not what he thinks he is. That man will be judged by his idle thoughts is most assuredly true, and he will be destroyed by his wicked, polluted, selfish thoughts. Or he can be eternally exalted by his noble thoughts. A man is noble or craven or mediocre or completely defiled by the caliber of his thoughts. And from the moment the fruit of that tree of knowledge was tasted, all men henceforward until the end of time have been and will be held accountable for the products of their minds. This amazing mystery or mist tree has been ignored as man has tried to blot from his mind the memory of its producing. He has sought always to close his eyes to his own responsibility in regards to the fruit of that tree. He is only childishly seeking to be held unaccountable for his thoughts, his moods, his tempers, and his mortal leanings. Yet he will be held accountable even for his idle thoughts. And the fruit is good or evil according to the thoughts of each individual. This is the tree, that Christ is the vine, and men are the branches. And man is the producer of those fruits, and whether they are good or whether they are evil is entirely of man's choosing. It's all about choice. The tree of knowledge of good or evil is also the tree of death, for by its fruits came death into the world, and every living soul is fed and nourished upon the fruit of his own thinking. And he who thinks only filthy, angry, evil, or selfish, greedy, defiled thoughts is required to subsist upon the evil of his own corrupted, degenerate, contaminated poisons of lusts, dishonesties, lies, selfishness. His hates and evils is feeding upon deadly pollution, and he will die. For this is the tree that brought death into the world, and is still bringing death into the world for each individual who brings forth its evils. However, the fruits of that tree can be beautiful and glorious and eternally life-giving instead of bitter and poisonous and deadly. It is entirely according to each man's thinking as to the type of fruit he and she will bring forth through the power or the utilization that he makes of his golden gift, the mind. For as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And as he thinketh in his heart, so will he produce or bring forth the fruit upon himself, will be nourished. For man does not live by earthly bread alone. He and she lives or dies upon the fruit of his and her own thinking. This is the law of eternity. It cannot be changed, neither can it fail. It is as definitely positive as the rotation of the earth as its days and its nights and its times and its seasons. Yet man can change his thinking habits and thus not only change his life, yet glorify it. The law itself is justice. The power to be able to change one's thought habits is mercy. The land thou seest will I give unto thee. Yes, the fruit you produce through your thinking habits or inner vision, I will give unto you as the diet upon that you will be required to subsist. For the harvest is of your own planting and your own bringing forth. If your eyes be single to my glory, your whole bodies will be filled with light, and there shall be no darkness in you. There will be no evils, no poisons, no deadliness or corruption, and you will be filled with light and comprehend all things. If one is filled with light, so that he and she begins to comprehend all things, he and she will first of all comprehend and know fully the law that brings about all conditions, either good or evil, according to the inner vision or according to the thoughts he and she holds within his and her mind. He and she will comprehend the full meaning of that tree of knowledge of good and evil. He and she will understand, overstand fully and with reverent awe that he and she is a branch of that tree and is therefore responsible for the type of fruit he and she produces. If an individual wallows in the slime of self-pity, gorges himself on the lusts and corruption of his flesh, seethes in the wraths of his hates, robs or cheats or lies, through the greeds of his blind selfishness, then the fruit he is subsisting upon are sour, evil, shriveled, contaminated, and poison. And his body will be corrupted and defiled and will rot in the grave, as his spirit naked and unclothed, with the precious gift of the flesh, will wander forth to await its judgment. For all the dead, small and great, must stand before the throne of Prime Creator and be judged. And the shame of their nakedness will appear as they are held accountable for the loss of their bodies. And for those who overcome, that overcoming means also the overcoming of death. There is no judgment, yet only glory for those who overcome. It is only possible for one to receive a fullness of joy when the body and the spirit are inseparably united. And this condition was meant to be achieved while in this life. The body can be exalted, purified, and so spiritualized through love and the worship of Prime Creator. Praises. No worship. Praises, honor, glory. And a reverence for one's fellow man, fellow woman, and fellow child. The physical can take on the purity and eternal vibrations of the exalted status of the spirit, and death can be overcome. Oh, yeah. As one understands the dynamic wonder of that tree of knowledge and produces only the good of that glorious tree, he becomes powerful. He fulfills completely the laws of Christ in a splendor of divine love and gratitude and exalting praise and joy. He and she becomes purified and is cleansed from all sin. He and she becomes exalted, and naturally and without effort or striving, he and she overcomes death. Death is the last enemy to overcome, according to the promises of Yeshua Christ. Christ not only taught by words that a record might remain, Christ proved Christ's words by fulfilling them. Christ proved everything that Christ taught by Christ's own life. Christ overcame death and left this challenge for us. If ye believe on me, the works that I do shall ye do also, even greater works than these shall ye do. And so that great mystery or mystery that has been veiled in the mist of the ages becomes fully revealed in its breathtaking glory as the tree of life. Also, it is the veil or mist that has enshrouded this tree down the centuries that must now be rent. One has to guard his thoughts and so control his emotions, his actions, and his reactions with a glory of released love and goodwill, and joy and happiness will be the banquet of his feasting as he and she begins to grow and wax strong in the perfection of his diet. As one fulfills those first two great commandments, he and she truly fulfills all the laws and rises above the law in a triumphant overcoming of mortality. And in so doing, he and she will be caught up to dwell with Prime Creator. Such is the promise. As man learns of the power of his thoughts and the meaning and the effects of them, first upon himself and then of their effect upon the world, and utilizes that knowledge, he becomes a master. And from mastery, he progresses onward into a glorious, radiant being, completely freed from mortality and death. Then he is prepared to move onward toward divinity and godhood. The fruit of the tree of knowledge is to make one wise. Yet wisdom only comes to those who benefit from experience, whether their own or that of others. One does not need to personally live in the eternal gloom of despondency, the agony of despair, the filthy evil of hopelessness in order to gain wisdom. Too many who permit themselves to be entrapped in these slimy bogs of darkness have willingly descended into those hideous depths through their own thinking habits. No one can be forced to wallow in such contaminated defilement unless he is willing or completely unwise. And if your eyes be single to my glory, your whole body shall be filled with light, and there shall be no darkness in you. And that body that is filled with light comprehends all things. And I will unveil my face to you. Such is the promise of Almighty God, and Prime Creator's promises fail not. And if one's eyes are single to the glory of Prime Creator, it is utterly impossible for him to dwell mentally upon a negative, dark, dismal plane of doubt, fear, frustration, greed, lusts, lies, hates, envy, or self-pity. And as his thoughts are consciously held upon that highest level, he and she is gradually spiritualizing his body and her body as he and she feeds upon the most perfect of all fruits, the good of that precious tree of knowledge. In this divine control of thoughts and feelings and perfect adoration, love will pour out through every living cell of the soul and the body. And the fruit of the tree of life is the love of Prime Creator that is shed forth through the hearts of the children. And man, woman's heart is prepared for this glorious experience as he and she trains his and her mind to think only the most beautiful things possible. This precious fruit of life eternal is man's to partake of always, and in it is contained the fullness of joy and a complete knowledge of Prime Creator. For Prime Creator will unveil Prime Creator's face to you. Prime Creator will be in Prime Creator's own time, and in Prime Creator's own way, and according to Prime Creator's own will. And Prime Creator's time will be when that individual is ready and prepared for so great a glory. It will be after one has been tested and tried in all things, and Prime Creator finds that individual is determined to serve Prime Creator at all hazards. Then will he find his calling and election made sure. This sacred preparation is accomplished by the controlling of one's thoughts. It is achieved in the releasing of praise and the joy of happiness, in the cultivation of singing, ecstasy, as one rejoices in every blessing, and as he and she thus gives thanks and rejoices, his and her blessings will multiply and increase. Such is the law. This complete glory of revealing will be opened and unfolded and will become one's own as he and she arises in his and her faith to lay claim to his and her own divine heritage, accepts the responsibility of doing his and her own thinking, and as he and she knowingly and with full understanding and understanding selects the caliber of his thoughts, holding his mind single to the glory of Prime Creator, in an inner joy of praise and love and gratitude, then will the wondrous, everlasting good of his and her own divine thinking bear the fullness of its perfection for his and her joy and glorification. In this divine knowledge, as one utilizes this knowledge, he and she truly evolves from the man kingdom into the God kingdom, and all things will become subject unto him and her, both in heaven and on earth. The light and the life, the spirit and the power, sent forth by the will of Mother Father, through Yeshua Christ, their Son. Promises? Question mark, exclamation point. Yes, the promises are great and endless, and impossible to comprehend in their fullness until one begins to utilize his and her mind and his and her will to explore, to live, and to lay claim to them. For Prime Creator is a God of truth and cannot lie. Prime Creator is no respecter of persons. These most holy, divine, almost unspeakable promises are yours to prove and to grab hold of as the best gifts, as Paul revealed. Oh, come with me, you blessed ones, you blissed, crazy bliss diamonds. Leave the dark, dreary road of mortality behind. Let your minds become single to the glory of Prime Creator, to the splendor of Prime Creator's perfection, to the breathtaking beauty of Prime Creator's creations, to the love of Prime Creator's sharing, to the gratitude of Prime Creator's blessings, to the joy of Prime Creator's existence, and begin to think as Prime Creator thinks. Hold your thoughts high, keep your vision exalted, and rejoice evermore. This tree of knowledge is most assuredly alive and precious. It has been alive and producing for each individual according to his and her own thoughts and actions and reactions since time itself began. This tree of knowledge is most assuredly alive and precious. It has been alive and producing for each individual according to his and her own thoughts and actions and reactions since time itself began. Few, indeed, have comprehended the significant importance of that tree. Many have assumed that tree contains the instinctive knowledge of right and wrong. It most certainly does just that. Yet it does far more than that. It is the tree upon that grow the fruits of every man's thinking and acting habits. Thus, the responsibility of one's own thinking habits is his and her own, and the results are his and hers. And he and she will be held responsible for them. He and she is accountable for every vibration he and she releases from within him and herself. For he and she is assuredly a branch of that tree, and from his and her own thought energies, the fruits he and she brings forth into his and her own life are produced. When one accepts of the evil of that tree of knowledge, there come into his and her life all the desolating experiences, the nagging vicissitudes, the heaped up mountains of seeming bad luck, the dismaying misfortunes of ill health and deterioration as one plods his weary way along life's difficult, burdensome road to that dreary back door of death. It is possible that one may be unaware that through his and her greedy and dishonest procedures, he and she is carrying the curse of the broken law of gravity, which is one of the physical, mortal laws. The law of gravity and the law of mortality and the law of death are one and the same law. This physical law is the law of seeking for one's own. The higher law is revealed by Paul in 1 Corinthians. The 13th chapter is the law of charity that seeketh not its own. In breaking the lower law of gravity and of mortality, one usually goes a step lower and seeks for more than is his own, or for more than he is rightfully entitled to. He and she grasps that which he and she has no right to through dishonest procedures or greed. When the earthly law of gravity is broken, the burden of its curse follows beyond the grave and into eternity. Those who break this mortal law are doubly subject unto death, which is the fulfilled law of earth and mortality and gravity, or the grave. And the grave is not its goal. We heard that song. Yet death has no claim on him or her who overcomes all sin, or missing the mark. So declared the ancients, and many of them proved it. Christ reaffirmed this higher law, and it is yours, this wondrous law of glory and of life everlasting, and of joy unspeakable, and of power ineffable. It is yours to live and to prove. The glorious wonder of living Prime Creator's words and of proving them belongs to every living soul who desires to put them to the test. And as each individual aligns with this responsibility, he and she will need none to teach him, for Prime Creator himself, herself, will become their teacher. And as one lives the teachings, he and she not only knows of their power, he and she is able to utilize that power, the power of creation in its fullness, the power of healing and of bringing forth from the universal substance that will satisfy every good desire and every daily need. For all these things will be added unto you, such that will walk with Prime Creator. As one grabs hold of the knowledge of the power of the good and the evil of the tree of life or death, and utilizes their precious gift of choosing their thoughts for good and for the glory of Prime Creator, he and she begins to take upon him and herself that same glory. He and she truly becomes glorious, or as the precious writer of the Odes of Solomon declared, he and she who would interpret the wonders of the Lord will be dissolved and will become that he interprets. Interpret the love of Prime Creator and become that love personified. Interpret the beauty of Prime Creator's fabulous creations, and in your own life, become the personification of exquisite beauty. Interpret the breathtaking glory of that celestial song of creation, of praise and love and gratitude, and become the creative power of all perfection. Lift your thoughts to the glory of Prime Creator and hold them there, and you will become glorious, radiant, filled with light. And this will complete Chapter 18, The Pathway of the Gods, from the book Beyond Mortal Boundaries. Thank you. I love you. The just keep going. Peace and aloha. Bama P.